On now to something called the stepchild of the advertising industry. Now, even though it performs a critical role in raising issue awareness, health advertising doesn't always get the credit it deserves. Well, we can tell you that's all about to change. While mingling with the folk from the McCann agency at the Cannes Lions Festival this year, we managed to get the scoop on a brand new awards category which will be included in the festival next year.
This started as a conversation about a year ago when we found out that, again, we were the most creatively awarded agency, healthcare agency in the world. And we sat down and we thought, what happens next? Where do we go next? We've got our industry awards, but they're industry awards. If we're really going to improve and create a horizon line for everyone to aspire to, we needed to be seen to be part of the best in the world. And that was the Cannes Film Festival, the Cannes Advertising Festival. So we've been working very closely in pushing Terry Savage and the Cannes committee to create the first and probably, I think, the most, or the ultimate healthcare show. And when we talked to our competition, our colleagues and other creative directors around the world, they all said the same thing. We need something like that. We need to push our own industry and create a bigger industry of quality and innovation and excitement. And throughout the world right now, I think the industry's actually got quite flat. People have become not complacent, but confused as to where the next steps are. In the healthcare industry, it's rolling very, very quickly. We are sort of the new kids on the block. We've been around for a while, but we haven't got out of the sandpit. And now we're in the sandpit, standing up and saying, you know what, we can play games. We've been winning awards, we've been winning the shows, and we're stepping into the main arena. And that gives us the credentials to say we want more. So Cannes basically have launched this year the Lions Health for next year as the new festival initiative. This show is part of our strategy, a little bit cheeky. You might have seen our logo as a smiley face with a tongue poking out. We're not trying to be clever, we're just trying to be the human side and the fun side and keep that cheeky attitude, because everybody else will probably try and be super cool and professional. We are not pills, stethoscopes and white coats. That's not who we are. So what we decided to do was to invite an eclectic but carefully chosen group of people from around the world, from the United Nations, communications directors, from clients, brand directors, brand marketing managers, CEOs, to come to lunch and do nothing more than simply talk. And we called it Point of View. We wanted them to share a point of view over lunch on a subject related to the industry, whether it be communication or R&D or policy making, etc. And we have people from government there and the consumer world and the creative world to help spur on different points of view, from creating brand new ways to talk to young children who don't have parents but need to be taught how to relate to health in a cleansing way without the fear of pharma, how to produce pharmacological drugs in a way that are friendly to children to be used. And don't forget, we're talking to third world and at times first world, and the parallels inside there. And when we talk about parallels, our partners at Great Guns have brought in directors, videologists, gamers, bloggers, to help inspire and create a different conversation. So it's not about business, it's about the creativity and the solution making through innovation. That all sounds like gobbledygook, probably is to some people, but when you start to see the work laid out, and the work that we've been doing the last 3 years has actually proven that we're not doing the print, we're not doing the traditional, we're actually doing groundbreaking media solutions. Interactive engagement, lots of device management work, mobile health, the fact that mobile phones are the most popular device in people's hands throughout the world, and what does that actually mean to the common person. And the breakdown, and I'll use the word, and I use this word in meetings all the time, we just cut the crap. There are no briefs, there are no job numbers, there are no hidden agendas. We want to be the reason why people have done better work and help facilitate other agencies, other communication companies, smaller agencies and the larger networks to think bigger, outside of that tight box that we tend to get put into. This is a very complicated and very conservative industry that we're working in. It's probably the most difficult industry to be creative, whether you're talking about solutions and strategy as opposed to pictures and moving content. So to solve all that through strategy and creativity is a major, it's a major bound. So I think we've cracked that, and next year is, for us, the place for us to own and be part of and instigate conversation and to continue the point of view.
Well, not always the most glamorous side of advertising, but nonetheless very important. Let's stay with the discipline now and the big vision. Where's the ad industry going? What are the current threats? That informed a discussion with David Sable. He's the global chief executive of the Y&R network, who was in South Africa at the launch of the new partnership between digital design agencies VML and the local native. It's bold, it's ambitious, it's exciting as far as the brand communication space is concerned in South Africa, but there is an argument that many brands in developing markets are perhaps a little slow in embracing this digital strategy. How do you make a case for that?
I will tell you that I find that to be almost an absurd argument. I've heard it, and I'll tell you why. Because if you look at what's happening on the continent, mobile in this continent is ahead of mobile in the United States. You're going to tell me that's not so because look at all the apps. But that's exactly the point. Where we're ahead in is iPhones, which a very small percentage of the world have, on apps that fall into the app graveyard and that everybody downloads every day. I'm as guilty as anybody.
And never touch them.
But are useless. Versus a market, a continent, a place where people are developing life-saving, life-altering, life-enhancing digital. That to me is hugely exciting. And I think that we're going to learn more from here than just about any place else in the world, quite frankly.
You've been quoted as saying that advertising agencies these days have to solve client problems and they're not the traditional purveyors of advertising as we know it. Does that mean that advertising agencies have lost their focus?
If you really think about it, right, and if you look at what people are doing today, so Google has become traditional. Facebook has become traditional. Every day there's something new. So I don't believe this word traditional is correct anymore.
We're too keen to pigeonhole.
We're pigeonholing everybody. At one time, think about innovation. The way we look at it, there's what we call creativity and there's innovation. So creativity is telling the story. Now, that story has been told since Homer, since the Bible, and you have to ask yourself, why did these things persist? Why do they last so long? Because they tap into essential human truths, which is what brand communication is all about. And then they connect with people. Innovation is how you deliver the story. Papyrus was once an innovation. Radio was once an innovation. Movable type was the biggest innovation. I think, in fact, movable type was a bigger innovation than the internet. There's going to be another innovation. Maybe it's telepathy. I don't know. The notion of traditional just doesn't cut it anymore because the truth is just walk around any place, walk around any big city and look at the proliferation of outdoor advertising. One of the oldest forms of it existed in Pompeii. And look at the proliferation of that. Newspapers are still strong. They're stronger than people think, which is really interesting to me. There's a whole renaissance in newspaper today. If you go back 10 years, read the analysts. Television is dead. Television is far from dead. In fact, it's never been stronger. And I think what's most interesting is that Twitter, who the analysts say, this is really the key now, right? Because it's the analysts who are making these points, right? So the analysts say, well, compare television and Twitter. Where are people spending more time? Twitter doesn't want to be compared to TV because they know they can't win that fight. So they're saying, no, we're a bridge to TV. We're a bridge to content. So I don't think there's anything called traditional anymore. I think there's just great brand communication, great marketing communication, and we have to understand how to deliver that in the way that makes the most sense to the consumer.
And the future of all of this, the person or the agency or the brand that's going to get this right, he who holds the best data and optimally manages that data is going to be out in front of the wave. Am I correct?
Maybe. So again, I will take exception to the thought. So I come from a data background. I was an early internet entrepreneur. I spent 12 years at Wonderman, one of the leading data companies in the world. I believe fervently in data. I think it's huge. But data doesn't make the story. And I think that's the thing. See, we've always had targeting. If you don't have the right message, if you don't have the right content, if you don't have the right insight, it's all worthless. So just think yourself. I'll give you a great example. I don't know if you've ever looked at your Google profile. But Google lets you look at your profile. And it's interesting to see who they think you are. Everybody should do this. All of your listeners, everybody should do this, right? So I've done it. Now what it says is we cannot tell your ad preferences based on your choices. They have no clue who I am, right? Now why is that? Because I'm not pigeonholable to them. As, by the way, I don't think any of us are anymore. Because at one time it was very easy to target, and we talked about micro trends. Soccer moms was of course the famous one. But today it's nano trends. So in the course of one session online, I can be the CEO of an ad agency, I can be a global traveler, I can be a creative person, I can be a lover of the doors, I can be a grandfather, I can be a hippie, which I am a bit of, embarrasses the hell out of my daughters. I can be all of these things. So they can't figure out who I am. So what are you going to target me with? Unless you have insight into what I'm doing and why, it's irrelevant. So we believe in a concept called Generation World, because we think that's what's happened. I think that's the biggest value that the internet has brought us. So Generation World basically says that there's no more segmentation the way we think about it. There's no more pure targeting. It's only about human interest, because age, border have all become irrelevant. We are going to be able to target better and better and better, but there are two things we'll never know. One is your motivation, because thank God we human beings are completely irrational.
That's all well and good, but let me also suggest to you that creativity remains at the core of what you do.
I was asked at a conference about 3 weeks ago with a few other people, what should young creatives learn today? So the other panelists, rightly so, and I responded with what I consider to be digibabble, which is, well, what they should be studying is the impact of digital social networks on the coding. So they asked me, what should they learn? So I said, you know what? Every one of them should read the Iliad and the Odyssey. They should read them and ask themselves why thousands of years after Homer wrote it, or told it over, but he probably didn't write it back in 480 BCE, why is it still here? Why is it translated into every language in the world? Why is it being translated into every type of content that you can think of, digital and otherwise? Why are we iterating on it and creating movies like Brother, Where Art Thou and 100 other stories that have come out of it? Because it attacked a human insight. It connected to us. It was something that we could understand. We got the story. It spoke to all of us. If you understand that, 1,000 years from now, when Homer is still being taught and the Iliad and Odyssey are still in our heads, and Google and Facebook are long forgotten, people are going to be making the same argument.
So some big views there, but what is the thinking and perhaps the benefit behind this VML native tie-up? Senior executive David CINMAN explains to Mags on Media.
I think native strategy, ever since we merged three businesses a few years ago, was to dominate the South African market from a digital point of view, but always with a view to growing into the African opportunity. So I think that's one big reason and one amazing thing. But I also think South African digital agencies tend to be very myopic. We tend to look at ourselves and maybe some of our competitors. And I think that's what this is going to allow us to do, is to get a truly global perspective and to take the learnings from a very successful and very exciting international global agency and use that to propel us forward in our own business.
And coming up on Mags on Media, the White House press corps turns 100, how to manage the world's most influential media gaggle.
News that moves. ENCA.com.